Hello, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you one more time. Okay, so what are we going to continue doing today? Okay, today we are going to continue talking about what the learning guide says about this activity, mis próximas vacaciones. In this case, let's do a quick reminder of what we have to present. According to the learning guide, we have to present una composición de no menos de 10 líneas donde exponga 10 actividades o acciones a realizar durante este periodo vacacional, utilizando verbos modales. So to do that, we're going to answer questions like from work, how many days would you have for vacation, where would you go on vacation, who would you go with on that trip, and would you ask for advice from a travel agency? So this is what we are going to present in this occasion. And remember that we have until the 21st of November to present all activities, but we suggest you to complete this specific activity, the forum, until the 7th of November. ¿Vale? So because we need to use sorry for this. We need to use modal verbs. I'm going to do a quick recap of modal verbs. So last time we were talking, we were saying, we were mentioning that modal verbs are auxiliary verbs and they support, they help the management of the main verb. So this is this is what a modal verb does. It's like an auxiliary verb. So they give asteroids. They give asteroids to the main improve. They improve the meaning of the main verb, and they express ability, advice, obligation, possibility, invitation, offers, probability, and so on, and among others. So we also say that the location of this modal verb comes before the verbal tense or after the subject when we are using are having negative sentences. The modal verb is modified to create a negative sentence, and when we are making questions, the modal verb comes at the beginning of the question. Additionally, we said that some verbs we are going to study to better understand these modal verbs because they express many things. Are the modal verb good first on the first hand because the verb good is used to express desire and wish. And for example, we could say, I would like to visit Rome, take some pictures in the Fontana di Trevi, but I wouldn't like. But I would like to swim in the Tiber River. However, I know it couldn't be possible because it's forbidden. Let's suppose that. We are expressing desire and wish. We also mentioned the difference between can and could. We said that can and could both are used to express possibility or ability. To possibility or ability, somebody has to do something, and we said that can and could are used for the same reasons. However, can is used in present, could is mainly in past. And we mentioned some examples. For example, I can translate this book today because this is possible for me. I have time, I have the wish, I have the desire, I have the and could. For example, we could say I could translate a book yesterday, but not today because I'm too busy today, for example. So this is the difference between can and could. Additionally, we said that can and could are also differentiated because, they are used to mention a hypothetical future, a conditional future, something that might happen in the future. So if this happened, then we have this consequence. So this is hypothetical. This is a conditional future. And we said that case is differentiated with could because can expresses that this future when we have this hypothetical future, the probability of success, the probability of this situation happening is huge, is enormous, is too big. Meanwhile, when we use could to talk about the future, the probability of success is a little lower. So this is the difference between can and could when we are talking about a conditional future. We made given some examples. We use some examples about this. And for example, talking about the future, we could say you can get an infection if you keep picking at your gun. For example, you get a tattoo, but with this tattoo, if you don't take care of it, of your gun, because you have a wound in your skin, an infection is going to happen to you. You're going to have an infection, and this is not going to be good for your health. And we know for experience that this may happen. Therefore, we don't want you to do that. And the probability of this event happening is huge, is enormous. Meanwhile, when we are talking about the management of the use or the management or the use of the model could, we could say that something's probable in the future, but the probability of success is a little lower. For example, you could win the first place in the marathon. It's possible for you to win the first place, but it's not 100% sure because there are also good competitors. You might get a wound, you might fall, you might make a mistake. The probability of success of this event is not 100% certain. Right? So this is what we mentioned last time. Now we're going to focus in more modal verbs, but in this case, we're going to focus in two different situations. The first situation is to talk about modal verbs that are used to talk about requests, permissions, offers, and invitations. Use four modal verbs. So we're going to use again can and could, but also we're going to mention the verbs may and good. We have already talked about the verbs can, could, and would. So there is a new verb now, the verb may. But let's see them in detail. So when we are asking for a permission, when we are asking for a request, when we are offering something, or when we are inviting somebody to do informal, right? This is the difference. Formality and informality. When we are being very informal, we may use the verb can. For example, when you go to a store, and in this store, the seller, is somebody who has interacted with you for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, it's pretty obvious that he or she is going to with you because 20 years is a lot of time. So he might be very informal and say, how can I help you? Right? Because he's very informal. Or other example, you are in your friend's house and with your best friend, and you asking for permission just for formality, not because you really need his or her permission, because you are going to do something anyway. And you ask him, can I open the window? Right? He's going to answer to you, yes, you can, of course you can do it, because it's very informal. In fact, you normally don't ask for permission, you just do it, but just for the formality, you just do it for the formality, right? Can. What about could? we are going to use could to ask for permission when we are being very polite or neutral, polite and neutral. For example, when you are asking for a favor, you are requesting something, you are offering something, or you are inviting somebody in your workplace, in the office where you work, with your partners of work. They are not necessarily very close to you, but they are not strangers for you either. So you know them, not in deep, but you know them. So you could ask, please, right? You're being neutral, you're being polite. Or for example, could I open the window, right? And this person may say, yes, you may, right? Yes, I may. Look at the difference. Can I open the window versus could I open the window? The meaning is kind of the same, but the formality is kind of different, right? And when you're going to be very formal, incredibly formal, super polite, you're going to use the verb may. So in this case, may is incredibly formal, incredibly polite. For example, you're in the court, you are because I don't know, you know that in America, um, lawyers are very common, are very important, and staying in the court is very frequent, especially in these kind of movies. So you could ask if you want you a question. I have a doubt. Or for example, with your teacher or the dean, a teacher who inspires you a lot of respect for what he has achieved in his career, for example, or with the dean of the university, or the owner of the company, the boss of the company, the manager, right? When you are in front of them, you are going to be very formal. So you can ask, um, for an invitation with the verb may. For example, may I ask you a question? Or may I open the window? In this case, you are being very formal, incredibly polite. So this is the difference between can, could, and may in these kind of terms. But we can also use can't and couldn't in this case. Once again, can't is a little more informal, couldn't it's a little more neutral. However, the difference between can't and couldn't, we use can't and couldn't to also mention, um, to also ask for, to also request, to ask for permission to offer somebody something or to invite somebody. But we add a little aspect, and the aspect is that we want to be a little more persuasive, like when you win your eye, for example, or you are being kind of, don't you be mad, don't you be evil, can you do me this kind of favor, right? When you want to be persuasive, you use this kind of questions with can't and couldn't. For example, can't you open the window, please? Or couldn't you open the window, right? You're being very persuasive. The same happens with, for example, another two examples. Can't we listen to some music, please, meanwhile we are working? Or couldn't we stay a we are enjoying this time, for example, right? So when you want to be very persuasive, you can use can't and couldn't. Finally, the verb that's missing, good. The verb that's missing is used mainly to ask for indirect questions or when you're asking for indirect requests. In this case, you are being polite, neutral polite, right? This kind of similar. For example, remember that good means gustaría, viviríamos, and so on. For example, would you like a soda? Yes, I would like to, or no, I wouldn't like to, right? Or would you mind doing this? Would you mind opening the window? Would you please do this other thing, right? In this case, we are asking an indirect question or asking for a request, indirect request, and we are being polite again, right? So, between can, could, may, and good in order to ask for permission, to ask for request, to ask for permission, for request, to give you an offer or invite somebody to do something. So this is the difference, the first difference between these modal verbs. And the second part, let's go with the second part of these modal verbs. And the second part is that we are going to use modal verbs to give or ask for. So to give and request advice, to give and request advice, we are going to use these verbs should, had better, ought to, and could. And we can also mention the negative forms, their negative forms. Shouldn't, had better not, ought not to, couldn't, for example. Okay, so why do we want to express advice? Well, it's very common in us, in humans, to, to mention that maybe an activity to perform, to do, to complete an activity is a good idea to, is good or not so good. It's a good idea to do an activity or it's not a good idea to do something. So this is why we use modal verbs to mention that something's good or not so good to be done. There is the difference between these is that a it's like a rainbow. Sometimes it has some it has a scale of colors, like it's darker to whiter, right? To clearer. So it's like this. One advice is stronger and the other advice, the other word can be milder. So this is kind of, we are going to use had better when the advice is stronger, and we are going to use could when the advice is weaker. So it's less important. And between them, we have ought to and should. For example, when we are mentioning a suggestion, when we are suggesting something, we may use could. And in this case, a suggestion is not so important. For example, when you tell to a friend, and maybe this friend is not that you just want to mention an advice, you could say you could wear the pink shoes. They look good. They look nice, fancy, right? So maybe your friend is going to say, okay, I like them, but not today. So this is an advice, and if he takes the advice, it's going to be great. If he doesn't take the advice, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? What about should? We are going to use should. A opinion is very subjective. For example, you tell to your daughter, you should take your umbrella. Looks like raining. It's going to rain. So, in my opinion and my point of view, it's better for you to do that. So, you're not going to have a bad time. But what about to? It's kind of an advice again, but it's a little stronger, right? Because it has a behind, right? It's based on information in data, in a in information data, numbers, right? For example, we are going to use ought to. For example, you ought to limit the amount of salt in your diet, and we know this. And I am telling you this in an objective form, because if you don't do it, you're going to get sick. And we know that for experience, right? When you use a lot of salt or a lot of sweet, we as humans are not capable to tolerate these huge amounts of sugar. So that's why, for example, we have diabetes, for example. The same happens with salt and so on. So how-to is an advice, but with information. Is objective. We have data to mention this advice. And finally, warning. When we are the we are mentioning an advice that must be done, or otherwise the person that doesn't take the advice is going to have a bad result. The consequence is going to be negative for him. We are going to use had better. For example, you tell to your son, you had better clean your room, right? You need to do that. Otherwise, you are not going to go out with your friends, right? So this is the consequence. You had better clean your room if you want to go out, if you want do this, and you will have this positive consequence. You don't do that, and then you will have something negative in your in the behavior, in the price, in the consequence, in the result. Some things that you're not going to like. So this is the difference between can, should, could, should, ought to, and had better. So let's see some examples. Once again, could is used to mention a mild advice, uh, a suggestion to a solution problem, a problem that is not a situation of life or death. So it's kind of a normal problem. So what should I wear today? Maybe you could wear these shoes, sneakers, or maybe you could use I don't know, formal shoes. So it doesn't matter. In fact, it's not incredibly important. The decision is not very important. So this is a mild advice, not strong advice, right? I tell to you, I hate my old jeans, and you tell me, if I do it, great. If I don't do it, it's okay too. So it's not going to be the end of the world. What about should? We use should to express what would be the most correct thing to do. In my opinion, it's better to do that because my point of view, or what I have learned, or in my experience, or according to the social media, right? This is the best activity, this is the best way to behave. So this is something subjective, just in my opinion. For example, you should eat healthy food. Why? I don't know, because the mass media say that, and it's my opinion. That's it. Young children shouldn't watch violent TV shows. Why? Because I think, in my opinion, they might get violent too. It's just an opinion, and that's it. What about ought to? Ought to is a little more formal than should. We mentioned before that for to give advice, and the difference is very mild, right? Between should and ought to. So ought to is a little more formal and expresses that something must be done in an objective form, in an objective way, with a point of view in there, taking into account the truth, data, information, full information, right? And we mentioned that something is necessary to be done in no, right? So this is why ought to is not very common today, because normally we don't have full information, and it's based especially in terms of laws when we are in the court. So when we are talking about regulations, for example, if we are in England, we cannot drive on the right side of the road instead on the left, because if we go on the right side, we might get crashed. So we have to be careful with that. For example, he ought to behave a lot better, your son, because if he doesn't do it, he's going to break the rules. And then when he gets adult, when he grows up, he's not going to be a good human for society, let's suppose. And finally, had better. Had better can also be a better, do better, and for example, I'd better, you'd better, he'd better, and so on, especially in spoken language. And because this d sound is getting lost a little, normally we just don't mention it and we only say better. I better, you better, we better, they better, and so on. So had better is used to give recommendations, advice, when we believe that if somebody doesn't behave in this specific way, something bad is going to happen to him or her. He or she will have negative consequences. So we express the idea of a warning that something bad, something negative will happen to a person if this person doesn't follow the advice. So this is the idea of using had better. So forum, this activity, we can use these modal verbs. For example, if you are going with somebody to the beach, for example, we could say in a dialogue, more specifically in a dialogue. For example, in the travel agency, they say you could take pictures in the cliff, but just be careful with the heights. You should go. You should visit. You ought to follow the rules in there, because if you don't follow the rules, you might lose your cell phone and your camera, and you might have a fine, right? You will have to pay something that you didn't expect to, and you had better not swim in the same river. Otherwise, you not only have a fine, but also you will get sick. So for example, let's suppose that. So these four modal verbs are used to express an advice. For example, once again, when you are in the travel agency and they tell you what to do and what not to do in there. So this is it for today's lesson. And remember that if you have any kind of questions, you can ask me through email or through Zayuna, that is already working now. Be very careful with this, with your questions, and I wish you success with your activity, ¿vale? So thank you for coming today, and I wish you an excellent day, guys. Take care.